Thanks so much for tuning into this conversation. You can call it Q4 with BQ because we will be talking to Mr. Anjan Chatterjee about how the quarter and the year went by. But frankly, this interview, as we envisage, is not as much about numbers as it is about what the post-pandemic era looks at large for the space, and what would Anjan Chatterjee and Speciality Restaurants believe their course of actions would be over the course of the next 12 to 24 months as they look at I presume, a slightly different India than what was pre-pandemic. Anjan, great having you. Thanks for joining in. Hope all is well.
Pleasure's on mine. Thank you.
So I'll just start off with a bit of a minutiae and then get onto the bigger picture. When I look at your numbers, a top line growth of 10% in an Omicron impacted quarter, I presume you would probably take it with both hands. That the issues, if any, come around how the operational picture doesn't seem to be improving. Is it a factor of the operating leverage not working in your favor as yet?
You see, if you compare the quarters, obviously we have not done as well as what we did last year because it was a complete washout. It was, from December 15th, 18th onwards, things were dwindling, and then January was washout. February was, it took time to come back. So I think that comparison doesn't work in the best possible manner. So the most important thing is that if you see the year turning around, if you see the fifth year when we have, after learning so many lessons from the pandemic, which has been the biggest possible teacher, and since everything there was out of the syllabus. So there, I think that the learnings of the pandemic have come in, and these are the hard-hitting ones, which we have accepted humbly. We've shut down many restaurants, right-sized it, and so that's seen, a reflection of that is seen in the annual results. So that's where I think should be the right kind of turning around, the beginning of the turning around. And I said that I've been quoted earlier on that it's a rebirth, or in Hindi we call it the Punarjan of the specialty restaurants.
Okay. So would you say that, and it might be too soon to say because you don't know what will be around the corner when it comes to this dreaded pandemic, but with the presumption that all stays well, then would you say that how we've done thus far in the quarter one of the current financial, if that were to continue, then you would probably see a normalized year for the first time in 3?
Yes, absolutely yes. If things don't, external environment, rightly said, is not turbulent, and the inflation also doesn't heat up too much, and any other factors which are kind of pandemic, etc., come in, we've got the business model completely controlled now, because the expansion, as you know, that every company goes through a kind of when you have money lying, we are a debt-free company, there is a tendency to get into expansion, which may or may not be rational every time. And, when then you get into cannibalization, and eventually your footfalls get divided, every store matrix becomes difficult to sustain. As you keep on opening restaurants, your, EBITDA margins get affected, and they get delayed, so hence your profitability is affected. So I think that we have been able to do a rejig of the whole system in terms of the store matrix, being very careful about new openings. We are not scared, but we are cautious. We know exactly what to do. And then, pandemic has taught us, that we have to understand that there's a new vertical which is coming in the form of deliveries. Because we were never a delivery-oriented restaurant. We were primarily focused fine and casual dining restaurant. But this new vertical which is coming, as you know that, we are mainly China's the largest brand. Then you have Calcutta, Sigri, Sweet Bengal, etc. So as the flagship brand and the volume being the highest in that, and Chinese continues to be a relevant cuisine, which in fact is the most ordered food in the whole category of delivery food, and going forward, it's again the most popular one within the foreign cuisines. Even in India, all over the world, you see a Chinese colony mom and pop shop, something or the other happening. So this is one thing which has come in as a big, support to us, where the capital expenditure is low. We have balancing in the sense that there's no front of the house manpower. Everything is absolutely minimalistic, excepting the aggregators commission and the food cost. So there, I think there's a huge balance of what we've been doing. So what we are doing is simple. Wherever we've withdrawn mainland China from whichever geography, we are trying to add a cloud kitchen, and which is showing great colors. And I think this combination of brick and mortar and even Oak Calcutta for that matter. I mean, I don't know if you know that we've opened a new restaurant in London, Marble Arch, which is Oak Calcutta 2.0, wherein I have a partner in that particular unit and that venture called Aditya Ghosh of ex-Indigo and now Akasa. So we've done that. That's a project which I have been dreaming for a long, long time. And Touchwood, as we speak, it's doing exceptionally well, because I always knew that. I'm not saying being a parochial Bengali. I'm just saying that I think that the regional food is something which India has not necessarily tasted or partially neglected, because I think I love Punjabi food. I'm born and brought up in Delhi, and but then in India is not about only the Punjabi or a Mughlai food. India has So anyway, back to this track. So I think that I've never sounded so confident, and I don't want to overdo my talking numbers. But suddenly we've understood that the kind of grip and the support that we are getting from one vertical, which is the delivery, on the other you have. See, this all comes to the mainstay of the brands. If you have a brand, you can do a cloud or a ghost kitchen or dark kitchen. All this nonsense about the fact that we will give birth to a brand which is not familiar with the consumer, and suddenly we start getting numbers, is not something which is true. You will only call from the platform the food which you prefer and the brand you like. So this is where it is. So I think again I say that I can write a book on what not to do. Definitely what to do. A lot of people know what not to do about getting into restauranting and trying to understand that in the space. And the pandemic is one full chapter, or 4 chapters in that is the pandemic, where we have learned lots of lessons.
Happy to help you with that book, by the way. But just one quick point, Anjan. So therefore, as things stand, maybe a year is too far out to forecast, but would you say, since we are at the end of 2 months or 2/3 of the quarter, that Q1 will actually be a representative quarter of what can go right after the pandemic?
Yes.
Okay. Both on the top line as well as on the operational front. Perfect. Okay. I presume demand is not a problem. Wherever I try to book a table, I'm told that please be on time, otherwise the table will go away. So I believe demand is not a problem currently.
Touchwood, at the moment, no. Demand is, it's again, I keep on talking about, the most abused term called revenge eating, revenge shopping, revenge tourism. But I think that people have got lots of money which has been lying around with them, and people have realized that life is short. It may have been an abused term, but suddenly they understand that life is short. Let me go to Kashmir. Let me do the bucket list is being ticked, and people do understand that, I would rather go and do this today itself. So that's the kind of a tendency, and the kind of banked money, if I may say so, is being spent.
Okay. So Anjan, let's say hypothetically, if you were to say increase your revenues on FY23 or FY22 by 50%, 75%, 100%, as the case may be, would there be a measured set of expansion plans that you would have, and would you go in that fashion? And would it largely be around cloud kitchens? And if so, how much does that bolster your operational metrics by? Because I'm presuming these are low cost, but equal margin or equal revenue generating options.
Very good question. See, first thing is that the whole focus is about bottom line now. I don't want to get into a fantasy of top line. We've had the, tendency coming in from 2000s 7, 8 when we had SAF partner, very good partner of ours, who invested money in us. So suddenly, when you get, I can be very candid, when you get equity money, you think it's a free money. So you start taking risks. So you understand that, okay, man, there's no interest in this because it's the most expensive money, by the way. So then you come in and there's a public issue, and we were the first Indian restaurant company who did it. And it was very difficult at that point of time, huge challenge. So once you do that, then you have, I've been extremely risk averse. So I've been a middle class boy, and I've always believed, like my father taught me, that get into fixed deposit, don't get into risk money. So it may be a traditional way to think. But then one of the pledges I had taken is that I'll never have debts in my company. And that, I think, has really saved us. In fact, it's around 100 plus crores even now through internal accruals, etc. Where, bolstering it over a period of time, being very cautious. So the future will be a mix of cautious, intelligently planned, geography-led, very well studied research. We've got some people coming in from very big brands who are actually doing business development based on lots of metrics and science. So we have got plotted areas which are to be done, and we know what is. There's one a very humble brand, but I'm saying not something you've heard of it. You've heard of Mindi Chana, Calcutta, Sweet Bengal, Sigri, etc. There's something which my son Avik Chatterjee has given birth to called it's called Episode. It's called the Episode 1, which is in Powai, which is basically a restaurant bar, and he had that particular, the numbers there, touch wood, it's a concept. It's anti-gymkhana, which he has done, single-handedly worked on it. Yeah. So he, it's like father sold food for, beta, selling liquor. So it's a combination. So we have he talks about the fact that yes, food is fine. As you know, today's, everything is changed because becoming more wetland, because khana to bahana hai, kind of daru jo peena hai. So that's how I say this whole Zennials and millennials who are doing that, and there is humongous amount of potential there. So he's plotted it. He did Hoppy Pola earlier, one of our earlier brands, and that's also expanded in its own way. But Episode is the new baby which we are going to be expanding, but cautious. So the combination of that, and you rightly said that the total understanding of the cloud kitchens where you have low capex, you will see that the margins may be more. You said that it will be equal, maybe more. In the midterm, it's okay because you have some capital expenditure, and it takes a little time for the platform to start focusing and amplifying your message. So I think that this combination is something which you suddenly found, which was not a part of our thought process, but pandemic taught us, and then I think it's been a blessing in disguise.
Okay, so better top line, maybe 100%, better margins, and therefore maybe better than that bottom line as well. Ceteris paribus.
Yeah.
Okay, great. One question around this whole conversation around aggregator margins and restaurants making a bit of a pushback, and at some point of time there being an equal level and stronger brands having a slightly better negotiating power. What has been your experience there? The Zomato, Swiggy's versus the restaurants. It's not versus, but I'm just using that term to make my point.
You see, I personally feel that they're running their business, and obviously they will always try to extract the best possible penny. But I think that, when you have a very strong brand, and it's all about the AOV, which you understand, average order value. So if your average order value is respectable, which ours is, then the percentage on which they charge you is considered, because they are ultimately about, if you are talking about a 2,000 rupees in an AOV, and the kind of percentage they get from there, even if it's hypothetical from 22, it becomes 18, they earn more money.
Sure.
So there is a matrix which we've been able to work with, and I think that both, since we started very early, 91, 92 and onwards, and we were the first one who entered Zomato. Devinder must remember this, because there was a gentleman called Pankaj who used to be a partner, and he entered. He presented to me on Zomato. We got into it first, and then you have also Harsha, who's now the CEO. I mean, Seb partner actually invested in our companies together. So both of us, I've known them well, and then they've also understood our model and the fact that we are long-term. We are not here as a fly-by-night operator. 28 years, is quite a long time for a highest mortality rate based, category. So God has been very kind that we survived Teji and Mandi, as they call it in Hindi, ups and downs. So there has been a great relationship. I know that sometimes people do have a different kind of, discussion with them. They can be difficult. I know that, but we have been able to mitigate lots of relationships over a period of time because of the number of years and the bit of credibility that we've had.
Quite a bit, I would say. I mean, all of us, including me, trust your brands inadvertently very well. So that goes without saying. But lovely getting some very interesting perspectives from you. And we do hope to hear more about newer models and newer methods of operations. And all the best for a really uneventful year, if I can use that term, Anjan.
Yes. Inshallah, touch wood, fingers crossed. Thank you so very much.
Thank you for joining us today. Much appreciated. And viewers, thanks for tuning in.